we're working with so many cool technologies. Naturally, the reimbursement for cataract surgery is going down, at least in the States. I mean, we're getting paid nickels for basic routine surgery now. There's more of a drive for a premium product. And what we're quote unquote selling to our patients is a lifestyle and it's spectacle independence. How do you provide value? Bobby, why don't we go to you? How do you provide value? How do you illustrate value and teach value without sounding like a used car salesman? I think there's a fine line there.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm just kind of chuckling because I just had a patient this last week who was like, needs to come back. And she was like, yeah, telling the front, she's like, please book me 2 hours with the doctor. And I'm like, I was chuckling because like, if you're just billing insurance, that's going to be really hard.
And we just talked about who not to do
Yeah,
premium procedures on. Maybe that was one.
that's a
Yeah,
fun one.
it's like,
That's a red flag.
I tried to see you back in 2 weeks. We'll repeat the scans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, I think first of all, I think is if you in these clinics are committed to correcting vision, then you're gonna assume you're gonna do that on everybody. So I think it's first is like, do you actually believe in it? Like, do you believe that, let's take cataracts, for example, that correcting the distance and intermediate vision gives them the ability to like walk without having to wear progressives all the time? Or do you believe that correcting their distance and up close vision will give them, freedom? And I think that if you get people to buy into that, or even correcting astigmatism, I always love asking people, at what point do you correct astigmatism during cataract surgery? And, some people is like, oh, it's 0.75. And it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So if you had 0.5 diopters in glasses, would you correct that in glasses? Yes. And at surgery, you wouldn't. And it's just kind of interesting questions to think about. It's like, if you have 0.25, like you'll correct in glasses, but not at surgery. There's just interesting questions to think about. But I think that if you really believe in correcting the vision and everybody believes in that, then you can approach cataract evals in a way that you're assuming everybody's going to have their vision corrected. Or when these patients are coming in for refractive surgery, I mean, those people want refractive surgery, so that's a little bit easier to assume they want their vision corrected. But I think that just ultimately at the end of the day, just driving value, talking about what their life is going to be like afterwards with these certain types of procedures makes it really easy for your clinic and of course, seeing the happiness afterwards. I mean, we had a lady who brought the surgeon a Valentine's Day gift. A female patient brought female surgeon Valentine's Day because she's just seeing so great after her first eye. So you get those testimonials and people bringing you stuff or cookies or, just things like that. Makes it really easy just to keep wanting to do that, being able to have the time to spend, an hour, maybe 2 hours, even with one patient, because these patients are willing to invest in their vision.
I had the best gift ever from a patient actually about a month ago after we did her final lock-in with the LAL. She's 2015, super happy, thrilled, and she pulls out. She goes up to the waiting room. She comes back with a 12-pack of beer. We're in Wisconsin. I mean, beer is it's like a love language around here. So I'm like, oh my God, this is great. Thank you so much. I came home and I told her I got beer for a gift. This is awesome. Normally it's cookies or something like that. But so let's talk about I mean, that's the elephant in the room. That is really the cost. Price transparency, I think, is important. Bobby, where do you list prices? Do you give patients prices before they come in? How do you do with that?
Yeah, for me, I just try to look at like what other people do. And I think that the people who do really, really, really well in maybe just not necessarily our industry, but other industries, what they try to do is they bring people in, like you go and you're like looking for pricing and you can't see any pricing. And that's because they try to add value first. If you list your prices online, there's plenty of companies who do that and plenty of companies who are successful. But in my mind, it's like, I would rather have the patient come in. I would rather list the benefits, the true benefits, not like the TikTok benefits or whatever they're researching. It's like, let me tell you about the specific benefits that address your pain points, like the reason why you even came in. And then we can tell you the price. And then we can see if there's enough value there for you to sign up for surgery. Because I think if you just have the prices online, people will be like, oh, they're not really sure of all the benefits. And most of the time aren't even aware of some of the benefits that would actually be true to them.
I think that's the value of not just the procedure or the technology, but the value of you, of your experience and your expertise and kind of bringing that to the patient as an individual, personalized, recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like buying a expensive bottle of wine at a restaurant. I don't know anything about wine. I can tell you that I'm not going to pick the most expensive one if I don't know anything about it. Coming in and letting somebody tell me about it so I can educate myself, I think is important. And I think you made a really good point about selling yourself. And it's not just the technology. The technology is great, but part of it is the surgeon, part of it is the entire team, and that is a part of the value. Is the technology going to work, but is it going to be done correctly and handled appropriately? Becky, what about you? What do you think about like price transparency? Do you have it on your website? Do you give it to patients before?
It's an interesting question. So I would say we're very transparent with price, but we don't have it publicly listed. A big part of surgery is not just the number. Surgery is not a commodity. And I think that's really important. We've all hit on it. Surgery is a lot more than the results. It's an experience. And so being able to be with a team that you trust, you build some rapport with, because at the end of the day, surgeons, doctors, their success is not based on how many great cases they did. Their success is based on how did you handle the rocky roads? And that's what patients are going to remember. So we're transparent with pricing in front of our patients. So they all leave with the cost of what we expect their surgery to be and an estimate from the insurance company, but it's not posted publicly. We try to update those prices just to keep in line, I would say, with the market. And it's shifting. We're all seeing that with the cost going up, and patients understand that, and patients expect that price to shift every year. We're considering price changes right now, and we've had patients who saw us at the end of last year, like, well, the price is going up. And so that's another difficult conversation to navigate. And that just happens to go with the economy. But every time we're upfront and transparent with the patients on here's what the price is, here's why we do it that way, here's the value it adds. Ultimately, end of the day, every single thing we do is value driven for the patient and what they need and what their expectations are with the outcome. And once they hear all of those things, price ends up being a number and not a major concern.
So part of the thing you mentioned about the care, so in the process with premium lenses, I guess with co-management, how do you address that with the price? How is that included in your guys' practice?
Yeah, so everybody adds value. So you've got a doctor, they sent you over here, they're very experienced, knowledgeable with post-op care. You don't have to come here for every single post-op visit, although we're involved. So I communicate with them every step of the way so that they know how you're doing throughout the surgical experience. They're going to see you back for the routine, whatever intervals they want to see you at, and they'll communicate back to me. If there's anything you need at any point, they'll reach out to me or you reach out to me. We'll make sure that we get you back in here right away. So we let the patients know that their doctor can participate in the postoperative care if they would like that, and their doctor agrees as well, and that there's a fee associated with that. They would either pay that fee to the surgeon's office or their referring doctor, and let the patient decide. Each doctor sets their own post-op fees, so we keep a list of that. That way we know what each doctor's fees are unique to the patient, and then we modify the patient charges based on that.
What about you, Bobby? Do you do a lot of co-managing?
Yeah, I would say like 99% of our surgeries are co-managed. So I'd say just ditto what Becky said. I mean, I think the biggest thing right now with everything that's going on is you just want to make sure that you're able to assess what fair market value is for the postoperative care, and that everything is clear with the patient. So just say that's the biggest thing. It's just making sure it's fair market value. And if you have any questions on that, happy to help.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead.
That brings up an interesting point. So we use a process called COFI. Anna, do you guys have that in Canada?
Don't. I've heard a little bit about it. It sounds like a really interesting concept. How does it work?
So I was actually on a call with the doctor earlier today, and she sent over a patient for Evo, huge success. He was really happy. And this was before she signed up on COFI. And so we have this pain point where now the patient is going back to see her. He signed co-management consents and agreed to pay her for postoperative care that she would collect in the office, again, before she was on the COFI system. And she calls me, she's like, okay, we never got a payment. And I was like, don't worry, we'll take care of it. Let me get on the phone with the patient. Called him up. He was like, oh, yeah. I totally remember that. And so she called him, paid the money, all that stuff. And I was like, listen, now that you're on this payment platform, when the patient pays in our office, they will divide that fee. They'll pay you your fee. The patient signs a consent. The patient knows where that money is going, and then they pay our office our fee. And so it's fee transparency, completely HIPAA legal, above board, all those important things. And there's a couple great systems out there that you can look into. This is the one that we're using right now. We've been pretty happy with it. They've got a great team that will reach out. So whenever we have a new doctor on board, their representative will reach out and help answer any questions the doctor has. They're essentially kind of like a credit card processing, if you think of that. So there's a fee associated with their work, which I think is well worth it. Most of the doctors we work with absolutely agree. But those are questions that doctors have when they onboard into a new system of, okay, how do they make money? I said, well, here's how it works. You can ask them specific questions about how they run their business, and they've been really, really happy with it.
I think that's really cool. It makes it super efficient. I mean, for us, we don't set we don't let doctors set their own kind of co-management fee. So it comes out of the surgical fee, and then is kind of sent out, through the company. So, but that would be a really cool platform to be able to make use of that. I think the biggest thing is teamwork. So whether it's teamwork between the surgeon and ourselves in the practice, whether it's the staff members or those external ODs, for us, it's an open door policy, open inbox policy. We have, referring ODs come in all the time to come and shadow, not just surgery, because I mean, you've seen a few, you've seen them all, right? They really want to come and hang out in the lane. I'm sure you guys have done the same, that kind of mentoring that's really just, it's priceless. They can come in, they feel comfortable, and then they don't feel that they're losing a patient. They just feel, empowered to be able to help them. And it builds referrals, it builds the practice, and that's how we've done it. Obviously there's kind of dinners and webinars, hopefully platforms like this that can kind of, be of use to some of these folks as well. But
I think having ambassador lenses too. So STAR has an ambassador program. RxSight, we've done ambassador programs for. But if you're fortunate enough to have a doctor who's interested in having surgery with you, that is absolutely priceless, right? So I just had an OD, younger guy our age, and he's gonna have Evo. And he's like right on the border. He's like, -5-ish. Like you could definitely do LASIK pretty comfortably. His cornea is healthy. And I talked to him about Evo, and he really didn't know much about Evo. And I guess that's my fault. I need to do a better job of educating our referring docs. I'm like, hey man, like Evo's great. Like your anterior chamber depth's huge. He's basically spherical. And so like, let's do Evo. Let's do it. And it's going to be, very efficient for you price wise because there's ambassador programs. But while he was there, we did a wet refraction like I normally would. And, you're there for an hour and a half or so with everything that goes into it. But I was able to have him shadow me for some light adjustments too. And so that was the first time he saw that. And then he saw, again, you're selling yourself. So he saw me interact with the patients and present options and, pros and cons with certain scenarios. And he's like, holy cow, man, like, this is great. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome that you're here. This is wonderful.